Good morning. Welcome to JRBT Tax Talks. We're happy to be back with you this week. I have with me Sam Cates. My name is Connie Berry. I'm a shareholder in the tax department. First and foremost, let's kick off with our obligatory, oh my goodness, I'm going to be tongue-tied this morning, Sam. Our obligatory disclaimer: anything you hear in this cannot be taken as tax advice. We really don't know your individual situation, so it's best if you reach out if you have a question regarding the information contained in this presentation this morning. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Sam this morning. We are going to be talking about 1099s. There's a new 1099 out this year, and so we think this is a very timely conversation as we near year end with what reporting requirements will we have for the upcoming year. So with that, Sam, let's dive right in, if that's okay.
Sure.
And so from a 1099 perspective, what are 1099s and who has to file?
Okay, that's a good question. Start off with the simple stuff. Simply, a 1099 is a form required by the IRS. It's an information form, so it's just a form that gives the IRS information that they need to be able to double check against company tax returns to make sure that the information and the accuracy of the reporting is there. And people that need to give 1099s would be anybody in a business or trade that pays money to vendors, and even sole proprietors and non-for-profits, lots of different companies. But if you are in a trade or in a business, then any vendor payments that you make could qualify to be reported to the IRS on a 1099.
So are all companies required to file 1099s?
Not all companies are required. It does have to be in the in the process of trade or in process of business. There are some 1099s that don't have, some payments that don't have to be reported on a Form 1099. But if you are in a business, or if you own a company, or you have a trade and you make vendor payments, then most likely there are 1099s out there you need to be filing.
So what type of payments may not need to be reported?
Payments to certain types of entities don't need to be reported. If you make a payment to a corporation, for instance, a C Corp or an S Corp, those things don't need to be reported all the time. There are some payments, but those are very small that get reported that are to corporations. And also any payments under $600 to a non-compensated, a non-employee compensation situation. If it's under $600, it doesn't have to be reported as well. But you got to be real careful. And the reason is because a lot of people think that corporations, these big businesses are corporations, and therefore you don't have to keep track of that sort of information. But to give you an example, AT&T, their cell phone company is called AT&T Mobility. It's a big, huge company. We see their advertising on TV all the time. They are a partnership. So they actually need to have a 1099 sent to them.
That's good to know. There are so many specifics when it comes to dealing with 1099. So we all think on the big scale, but we don't always think on the small scale.
Right.
The little intricate issues that come up with 1099s. I know there are some with farmers as well, but that's why it's important to visit with your tax preparer with regards to 1099s.
Very much so.
So are there any payments this year or any changes in filing that we need to be aware of?
There are some changes. You mentioned in your intro the new Form 1099 NEC. The interesting thing about the 1099 NEC is that it's a really old form that's being brought back. It was last used by the IRS in 1982, and it was used to provide information to the IRS for non-employee compensation, or NEC. Non-employee compensation, basically any contract labor that you have. If you bring in a specialist that does some work for you that's not considered your employee, that would be someone that you would have non-employee compensation. That was all, after 1982, was all put into one form, the 1099 MISC, or the miscellaneous, which most people are familiar with. And when in 2015 they changed the law that the 1099 Box 7 non-employee compensation needed to be filed by January 31, but all the other information needed to be filed by March 31, then that started causing some problems at the IRS, and they were having all these forms that didn't need to be filed or didn't need to be filed, and it was really kind of a problem. So this year they brought back that new form. It's a 1099 NEC, and it is just for non-employee compensation.
I think that will help, individuals decipher which form they need to file. And so really we're talking about, we have the 1099 MISC, the 1099 NEC, and don't forget there are 1099s for other purposes like dividends as well, mortgage interest.
Yes, A's, B's, C's, R's, you name it. There's a bunch of them out there. There are very specific things that need to be reported on those. But the NEC is just for one thing. The MISC, the miscellaneous, still has the other things such as rent, royalties. Royalties are a bit different because you have to report everything over $10, not $600. Legal service payments go on an NEC, whereas legal settlements go on a miscellaneous. So it can cause some issues there with some of the small differences in those payments, but yeah, there's a lot of them.
I imagine we'll see many questions this year regarding these forms.
We will, and we should, because there is penalties associated with these forms, and they can become somewhat large pretty quick.
So what is the penalty for not filing a Form 1099?
Yeah, filing a Form 1099 it sort of goes up as you go along. The later it is, the initial penalty is just $50 per form. So I don't mean to say just, because $50 is quite a bit if you file a lot of those late, obviously. And it is applied to each form not provided to the recipient and not provided to the IRS. So one form actually would be $100 if it was done late. That goes up to $100 and then eventually to $250 each form, so $500 for each filing. And if the IRS determines that you have just blatantly ignored the rule and didn't do it, then actually the penalties are capped at somewhere around $3 million. So it can be a lot.
It can be significant for certain. So when are they due?
The forms are due at different times. The NEC needs to be filed electronically and put in the mail to the recipients by the end of January. This year, January 31 falls on a Sunday, so that's been extended to February 1st. The miscellaneous and the other forms all need to be to the IRS by the end of March, but there are some different times in between there depending on whether you paper file or electronically file.
Perfect. I know that we see a lot of individuals who are unaware that these forms need to be filed and when they need to be filed by, so this is very timely. And I really appreciate your time today.
Sure.
Do you have any parting comments?
I will say that one thing that will help all of the companies out there to help organize this situation, to help keep track of this, is the IRS provides what's called a Form W-9. We all receive W-2s and fill out W-4s when we get hired. The W-9 is an IRS form that you give to your vendors for them to fill out, and then they fill that out, and that gives you all the information you need to prepare your 1099s. And a lot of times that is where you're going to find out whether these companies are corporations or not, because it actually has a spot on there for them to say, I am a corporation, and then that helps you to keep from filing when you don't have to. So W-9 is extremely important. You can download that at the irs.gov website. You can call us, we can send you a copy, and you can call us for any comments or any questions that you might have. We will be doing a lot of 1099s in January, so we will be happy to help out.
With that, we'd like to thank you for attending our presentation today. Look to our future presentations on retirement plans, year-end planning, etc. We look forward to seeing you again live.